That's how I roll, Erica. I'm all in.
The time is now 6:01, and I would like to call Strafford School Board meeting of March 17, 2021 to order. The first agenda item is to discuss board reorganization. Can I have a motion for a board chair? Yes, Mr. McMahon.
I nominate Debbie Hendrickson for Strafford School Board Chair.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second for discussion? Okay, I'm not hearing any discussion. Can we have a roll call?
You have to take other nominations. Do you want to call them?
I had discussion and there's no other discussion. Are there any other nominations?
Well, I was wondering if Erica would be interested in it. Erica's home. I was looking. I'm sorry, what?
Well, you can't make a motion until you go through. You can offer discussion first.
Okay.
Again.
Okay.
And we have one nomination and one second, and then we vote, and then we can have another nomination.
Okay.
Yes, that's,
Sounds good to me.
I believe you take nominations until there are no more nominations and then vote.
that is why I asked for discussion, but okay. So do we have a second nomination?
Yes. I nominate Erica Helm.
Do we have a second for Erica Helm? With no second, that motion would die.
Okay.
Okay, so going back to the first motion, is there any further discussion? Then I would ask for a roll call vote. Mr. McMahon,
Yes.
Mr. Amazon,
Yes.
Mrs. Helm,
Yeah.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
and would you like to abstain?
Oh,
Okay. So, second point is for you to go ahead and ask for advice. And I will go ahead and hand this meeting over to you,
okay,
Ms. Henderson.
thank you. Do we have any interest in vice chair? Karen,
I'm interested in being vice chair.
we have anybody else interested in vice chair?
I'm interested in being vice chair. That's how, I thought we were doing.
Okay, so we have
nominations.
nomination for vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Erica.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, I'll nominate Carrie McMahon for vice chair. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. All right. Carrie,
For myself?
yes.
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Erica,
Abstain.
Liz,
Yes.
okay, and Debbie, yes. All righty, committee appointments. That is on page 4. Alrighty, so the first we have the CBNA Education Committee. I have been that, Erica was my alternate. Erica, would you like that this year?
Sure.
Okay. Would anyone like to be Erica's alternate? That committee, actually, you go to, you're called, if there's a discipline issue, to go to Co-Brown, or we also have several meetings during the year where curriculum is explained. We also are involved in hiring new staff.
I'll do it.
All right, New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate. Erica, you were doing that. You want to keep doing it?
Sure.
Okay. Would anyone like to be the alternate?
I would.
Okay. Transportation Committee. Was that Misty before?
Me, Eric.
Oh, was it Carrie?
Was? I did a crappy job.
Okay, is there anybody?
wouldn't-
I don't think this last year we did anything, because there weren't a lot of bus routes to figure out. and-
So would anyone like to do that? Transportation committee? They basically,
I'll do that, Debbie.
okay,
Depending-
okay. Communication committee, we've been splitting that. I just post the meetings on the Facebook page, and Erica was writing the Strafford calendar article. I don't mind continuing to post. I don't write opinions. I just post the meetings. It's not anything that's very difficult. But writing the article every week is a little bit, every month is a little bit more involved. So I don't know if there's anybody interested in doing that.
I would do it with someone.
Would do it, okay? Liz, you want to do it with somebody? Who do you want to do it? Anybody else want to do it with Liz? Who do you want?
I wouldn't mind taking a crack at it.
All right.
Okay, all right. And I'd like to say, for years, we used to have the Strafford calendar on our agenda. And we would, as a board, say, what do we want to put?
And just.
Yeah, and somehow it disappeared. I don't know why.
It hasn't been on since I've been on board.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. So, okay. All right, so Liz and Erica, or Liz and Eric. Okay, and stay with just posting. If that's okay, unless somebody else wants to post on Facebook. Anybody else want to do that?
You want to take the Facebook piece there?
All Liz is putting the,
Yeah, that's.
you want to do
that's
that?
fine.
That would be wonderful. Okay. I'm gonna make you the administrator now.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All righty, policy representative.
I would like to continue doing that.
Okay. Now, would you like anybody else to be a backup or to work with you? Or you just want to?
That might be wise, because I think that going into the restructuring, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay,
I don't necessarily know the need, but I think we have to, and I'm sort of looking to Dr. Freeman, go through with a fine tooth comb in a way that hasn't been done in a while. Do you think that's, just to address the audience, do you think that's accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
is there somebody that wants to be part of that?
This is actually, I'm interested in this. This is right up my alley.
Okay. All right, next is superintendent evaluation. Normally it's
the chair.
Normally it's the chair, and then if the chair can't, the vice chair. All right. Strafford Building Committee, who wants to be on that? All right, Carrie. All right. Wellness Committee, were you on that, Erica? Or Misty?
That was,
Misty?
no, actually I was. It had been Misty, then I did it, and then, and we haven't done anything in quite a while.
All right, does anybody want to be on the Wellness Committee?
I'll do
You want to do it?
it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Now, negotiating committee, right now, we are starting our second year of our contract, so we have 2 years left. Normally it would be like next year we would start, but if you want to put people down here for now, that's up to the board. What do you want to do? Are people interested? Do you want to wait until next year? Okay. All right. Transition, now, I have been working on it with Misty. Misty is no longer here. Liz, I know you were on the transition
Okay.
committee when, okay, so. But if you don't mind if I continue with you. Okay. All right, athletic committee, I was on the athletic committee, but we didn't meet. Anybody
Again,
else?
there wasn't much after,
Right,
after we did our reorg last year, there really wasn't
right.
much to meet on, things like that.
Would anybody like to be on the athletic committee? I'll continue. If we actually meet, I will do it unless somebody else wants it. All right, so I think we have, yes, Eric?
Could we circle back to the building committee? I don't know if Mr. McMahon would be interested in taking on someone else in that committee. I would be interested in working on that.
We are going leaps and bounds. I would love to help.
Okay,
The only thing is, can you make the meetings last Wednesday, 3:00?
should be able to make something work. Maybe I can be an alternate. Maybe it won't be.
Well, you can show up.
Yeah.
There's only 2 school board members, but
Okay,
if you can make,
yeah, yep.
I know you got a real job.
So we don't have anybody for it.
I
Oh,
said I
you
would
do?
do it
Okay.
unless somebody else wants to. I'm not sure.
I'll do it if nobody else wants.
Would you like to do it?
Right,
Okay,
sure.
all right, so instead of, I feel like I will put Liz on it. All right, so we have, just for the minutes, we have Erica as the CBNA Education Committee rep, Carrie is an alternate. New Hampshire School Board Association delegate will be Erica with Liz as an alternate. Transportation Committee is Eric. Communication will be Liz and Eric will work on their article for the community calendar, and Eric is going to take care of posting on the Facebook page, the school board Facebook page. Policy reps are Erica and Eric. The superintendent's evaluation, myself and Carrie, if I'm not available, and then the Strafford Building Committee would be Carrie and Eric. Wellness Committee is Liz. We're going to hold off on the negotiating committee this year. Transition, Debbie and Liz. Athletic is Liz. Okay. Next is our code of ethics, and that is on page 6. Did everybody get a chance to read this?
Mhm.
We have a clean copy to start circulating.
I have one in my packet.
Yeah, so I didn't know if there's one that didn't.
Did you have one? No,
I can.
okay. All right. So what we do is we read through the code of ethics. Hopefully you'll have read through it. And then we sign that we're in agreement. So does anybody have any questions about this? Before we send the sheet around to sign?
Can you ever read this out loud? I'd like to read this out loud if nobody minds.
I think that's wonderful, sure.
Okay. Code of ethics for school board members. As a member of the Strafford School Board, I will adhere to the following. I will make decisions in support of the educational welfare of our children and will adhere to all board policies. I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are run to the best of their ability. I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which if disclosed would needlessly injure individuals or the school. I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the superintendent and principal. I will excuse myself from any discussion and vote that involves personal financial interests. I will excuse myself from any discussion and vote that involves personal contracts with family members. I will not knowingly place myself in direct conflict of interest situations. And I will recognize that individual board members are without authority to act relative to school district business, and that I will not individually commit the board to any action except as specifically designated to do so by board action. I will take no private action that will compromise the board or administration, and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law or is received in confidence or executive session. Didn't seem quite so long.
Okay, that was great. Thank you for doing that. All right, so we're circulating the sheet to sign it.
Patty's going to make a clean
I
copy.
will, I asked for one
Oh,
copy
okay.
separated so you can sign your own sheet as well as the joint sheet.
Okay.
So you don't have to take your packet apart.
Okay, so if you want to sign your own sheet now.
No,
then-
I'm asking her to bring you a
Okay.
clean sheet of your own.
Okay,
So-
all right. All right, so as we're waiting for that. Signature, okay, so we're gonna go now to action items. We have the 2/17/2021 public, non-public school board minutes. Then we have the 2/22/21 public meeting minutes. So do you want to take one at a time? Or how do you want to, do? Can we have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes from public and non-public from February 17th, 21, and the public minutes from February 22nd, 21.
All right, a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I have corrections.
Okay, great. Where do you want to start?
So on the 17th, line 27,
Mhm.
I think it should be, it's right at the end of the line, it should be none rather than neither. So I think it was all of us.
Okay,
Line 32, just about the middle of the line, should say district meeting instead of budget hearing. Line 42, about 3/4 of the way across, I think it should say government and not authority. Next page, line 65. I think it should say, the warrant article on SB2 did not pass the board for support. Just to be clear, we weren't voting whether it was going to show up. It was just that we weren't adding the tab ins to the board. Line 73. I don't believe I said I asked if that I would check with the town to use their space if needed. I thought my memory, although this was a big discussion and I was still reeling from being made the MC. I think I said I was going to check how they were handling registration, not anything about their space, but how they were handling it.
check, okay.
And on page 12, line 172, I believe it's the new presidential administration has decided to extend the free and reduced lunch eligibility. I think adding eligibility to the end of the sentence. I don't know, the top of page 13, 178. And this is part of Dr. Henson's report. So I don't remember it word for word necessarily, but I don't know that there were thousands of kids in this region who have not logged on.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. So there are children in the region instead of thousands of?
Sure, or thousands of children just and strike in the region, one way or the other. So I don't know if if the point was to talk about this region or just that there are school children across the country that haven't logged on, but I don't think it's thousands in this region.
I don't remember.
So either way.
So there
Either
were thousands,
striking thousands or striking in the region, one way or the other.
yeah,
I don't know which one is more accurate to what she
there were
said.
thousands of children. Well, probably in the country, it would be, there are thousands of children
Right.
who have not, so,
So if we strike in the region,
yeah, okay. Even though I'm not sure what she said, but that
but I
makes
think that
sense.
captures more the
Right.
sense of what she
I
was saying. I don't think she was saying in this region. And then on page 14, line 215, parents would provide transportation, not oversee it. I mean, I guess they're overseeing it as well, but the point is
Yes, I
that
have
they
that.
provide transportation.
Yes, I have that too. I thought I had would cover the cost of transportation. Or provide. That's
Typically
fine.
you say provide, but maybe you said cover the cost. I honestly
But-
can't remember. I
You know
just know it
what,
was
I
more
think,
than
yeah,
oversee.
provide makes it, I had that one checked too, because we're certainly not gonna have them oversee it, they have to provide it or pay for it. Okay.
That's all
I have on line 203, it was the BMSI budget. Okay, okay. Community School District in the region. Okay. So it's the BMSI web ledger. And something else supposed to have here. Okay, and then on Eric, Carrie,
Yes.
that next section, when you were talking about the ventilation system, I thought you gave us a name of it, you gave us more information. There's just a lot of details missing from that,
Yeah.
and I
I
think
read it
that's
all
pretty
out.
important to know what
Never.
we approved. So I would ask Amelia, if you could check on some of the details in that paragraph where Mr. McMahon is giving an update on the air ventilation system and add the details, that would be great. All right, does anybody else see anything?
Actually, right there, line 209, if that could just, for tracking and making it easier, if that could start a new paragraph
Okay.
around the ventilation system.
Okay.
I have one thing. I don't know exactly where, it's somewhere around line 52 to 66. On page 10, where we would, after Mr. Patrick brought up the additional layer of government, I believe as a member of the public, I stood up and mentioned the budget committee.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
she has that back on.
I did not.
I saw something about that. Committee
Yeah.
too.
Is that what you said that?
I remember you saying that, and I thought I remember reading
Yeah, and we know that Jenny also spoke. Do we have what she said?
it. Well, it just says that she spoke.
Okay, so should we do it first? All right. Okay, so we have you speaking. Did you speak twice that day, Eric?
I did. I made my initial comment, and then after Bruce brought up the additional layers of government,
So that's probably where it goes, and she ended line 43,
somewhere around there, I
because that's probably what prompted Bruce to say it.
Right.
So actually probably before,
Okay, so,
right, to 42, line 42, maybe before Mr. Patrick.
no, he said it first.
Oh, okay.
so what we need probably, Amelia, is the public comment section of the public hearing on the SB2 warrant article. It seems like we're missing one of the public comments. And that was Eric Almazan, the second time you spoke. Okay. All right. Anything else? No? Okay. All righty, so we have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Oh gosh, I'm looking at the old one first. All righty, Erica,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and Debbie, yes. Okay, with those corrections, thank you, Amelia. We never got, I noticed in this pack, in the meeting minutes there, it was a February 10th meeting
Yeah.
minutes, needed to be corrected, and we were supposed to approve them at this meeting, and they're not in our packet. So maybe if we could have those for our next meeting, that would be great, thank you. All right, so let's go to our next. All right, now we're gonna go to the 22nd. Looking at the 22nd, I'm just gonna say, I think there's a lot of missing pieces that almost needs to go back. There's, I don't know if you have corrections for that one.
Yeah, I thought they were trying to complete first. the
Well,
20-minute
I went
meeting
back
that
and
we had.
watched listen to the video.
There is no recording.
I listened to the recording. They have on Facebook.
Oh, I was told that the meeting didn't get recorded.
It was recorded.
Maybe they were
Their
trying,
audio-
maybe the person who asked for that was trying. They didn't get
Yeah.
posted.
So anyway, could we go back and we'll look at this a little bit more closely? Would people mind that, to listen to it again? Because there's sections left out of here At the end of 26, there were several comments that went in here. There was there's like chunks missing of conversation. Also, the letter isn't included, and that was sent in. People mind if we had to listen to the tape or listen to the recording again for correction? Yes? What?
I don't know what's missing. I thought these were complete, but I don't care if you want, if you feel there's something that needs to be in
Okay,
there.
all right. Okay, Amelia, could you please listen to that again? I know you have that recording. And also, could you please include the letter? All righty. Next. We're not going to do the non-public now. We're going to do that at the end of the meeting. We have the business administrator's report. And we have Nate, who's going to take care of that for us. Nate.
Should we, just for the record, say out loud that Dr. Henson and Mr. Waring couldn't be here because we switched our meeting date, so
Right.
they're regularly scheduled as well.
Yes, thank you.
So in the business report, what you see attached here are just your monthly revenue lines and reports of where you're currently standing. So there's an overall breakdown of everything that's included in here. It shares with you on the first page, on page 18, what the different number of grants are and what they are covering, so that you can go through it. These are your monthly revenue reports. So what I would do is I will just go through each page, and I'm going to just start page 19, say if there's no questions. I'm not going to go over each line because I won't do it the service that Mr. Waring would. But if there is something that I can answer, I will. If not, I'll bring that question back to Mr. Waring to make sure that it gets answered.
Thank you.
Okay. So if we're looking at page number 19, that is the first grant that we'd be looking at, and looking at that grant. Are there any questions regarding this grant? This is your food service.
Okay, I guess when you say 19, I was looking at the monthly revenue report. That's what we have in our packet first.
Yep, page 19 at the bottom.
Okay, that's our monthly revenue report.
Yep, that's the first part of his business report.
Right, so what I was just wondering is, I don't see it reflected. Remember, we made the motion to have the health trust money, the unanticipated funds, go back to our budget. And so that would be under unanticipated income. So I just want clarification about that, so that money is somewhere.
Okay, any other questions on page 19 of the report? So page 20. Looking at page 20, that is, again, another, your monthly expenditure. Any questions on page 20?
I'm just going to talk to Liz and Eric. So on this page, it basically shows any of the lines, like the subcategories, if what the totals of the subcategories are on that. So if you just want a quick glance at the budget, that's what that page is. Okay.
And it shows what your current balance is as of now. Your next page, 21, is just a highlight of any numbers that are above or below 1,000 that denotes to indicate the balance. So he shares with you where you're currently looking at, you could potentially be overdrawn.
So when it's in the parentheses like that, at the end, it means that we're over. That's how much money we're over on that line. But, you know, we usually can balance it from other lines. So that's what he does with this page.
Are those over for the year?
Yes, year to
So,
date.
year to date.
Year, okay.
So the percentages tell you how much over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
How much of the budgeted amount has been expended?
Correct. So the first column is your budgeted amount, and then when you currently look at the third to last, where it says balance, that's what's remaining in that account. And then your encumbrances are the additional amounts to be spent, and then your budget balance at the end of that shows what you have overspent at this point.
And we do have some notes there as to why.
Page number 22. Any questions on this one? This is your general ledger report.
This basically just takes every single line in the budget and tells us how much we've spent so far. And then we try to have the salaries and like all the contractual things encumbered. So even though we haven't paid for it, we know we're going to have to, and it gives us a little bit of a better idea of how much we have left.
And the range to date is what was spent in this last month. That was something in there to keep, so you can keep track. Okay. So page number 23 is a continuation. Any questions on this page? Okay, hearing none. Page 24, any questions on this page? Again, it's a continuation.
I have a question, and maybe Kathy can answer this. The co-curricular, now that's different from our athletic stipends. What would be considered the co-curricular salaries? I see we spent a little bit. So,
You're asking me what co-curricular?
yeah, what
That,
others?
that would be our, activity, and I'm trying, camp invention, those kinds of things that we do that are.
Okay,
Drama,
Addition, drama would be, well, drama, I think, is a stipended,
right.
I think that's a different one, but any of those type of activities that we would provide.
So we did spend a little bit of it, and I'm not sure what we actually did this year, because did we have any groups at all? I mean, did we do anything this year so far?
I think, yeah, what,
Camp invention. It would have been camp invention.
It would have been
that was
camp-
after July 1st.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't seem like it's enough, but okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on page 24?
Yes, okay, so the substitute stipend, we're still paying that. It's just we haven't made the payment yet? Aren't we still paying substitute stipend for the people who call the subs?
Yeah, we just don't have any subs, so yes, it will be.
Right, okay, so that's what I was wondering.
No.
no,
I don't think that's what
we
she's
split,
asking.
that's a fund amount that was split between two folks who are taking the responsibility of coordinating and getting our subs. So yes, that money is absolutely allocated.
Yes, so it should have been encumbered. Great, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Mhm. Athletics, okay. Did we do any athletics so far this year? For athletic stipends, did we have any?
Well, you're gonna hear a little bit about it in the principal's report. But as you recall, when we paid, when we had our pre-K teacher doing our remote instruction for pre-K through 1, we chose to use some of the athletic stipend money because we knew there were a number of ones that we had not used to pay that stipend for the second trimester. But there is still money there in the event that we are looking at spending.
Okay, so that was not for, that money spent that we see here is actually part of that stipend.
I'm having trouble following. I don't have that, we don't have that document,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm trying to follow the packet going, I have no idea where we are.
Okay, all right. It says that we've spent $4,166 so far out of the athletic stipend, so that's why I was a little confused, because I didn't think we've had any athletics this year.
The board voted to take that payment for that individual out of the athletic stipend line, because we knew that it was a line that had money that we were not necessarily, there was at least a portion of it that we weren't going to use.
And will that be able to be reimbursed by the COVID because it was for remote instruction?
We initially did not do that because that went from, when the first COVID funds came out, that second trimester started, I believe it was December 8th. and it went into this year, and those COVID funds stopped in December. Once again, that's gonna come up in the principal's report, because I want to talk about that again.
All right,
But yes, starting, anything that we did from January, I believe we will be able to recoup.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Next page is 25, it's a continuation. Any questions on page 25?
I have a question about the health supplies that obviously, we've overspent that line, but are we being reimbursed for that almost $9,000 overspent in the health supply line for COVID?
We should be, yes.
Hearing no other questions, page 26.
I'll ask you a question, Nate, about the contracted services for pre-K. It says we still have $15,000 in that line. Is that accurate?
Pretty close to being accurate. We didn't have to contract additional things. Remember, we put some items in there that we weren't sure if we were gonna need them, but we planned a little extra. The only thing that has really come out of there is your preschool coordinator at this point. So the year's not over though, so depending on if you have a student who moves in, you will be using some of those contracted services for evaluations and or supports.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hearing no other questions, I'll go ahead and move to page 27.
I have a question on the technology new equipment. It seems like we have quite a bit of money left in that line. Is that because the equipment we bought was out of COVID money or? Yes? Okay, thank you. All right.
We could buy more.
Yeah, I'm just,
Like some good AV equipment for meetings.
Certainly some good audio. equipment.
And hearing no other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and move it. You got another question?
yes, the audit expenses. Isn't our audit $10,000? I know we probably haven't paid, we probably have the second payment too. Because it says we still have 3,700. I know we paid $10,000 for that audit.
Yeah, so there could be an additional audit portion. I can ask Mr. Waring on that. Okay,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome. Next page would be page, I'm trying to read that one. I'm gonna go ahead and say page 28. Any questions on page 28?
I have a few. I'm just wondering, and Kathy, you may already have the answer to this, about some of the custodial things that I would imagine we could have been reimbursed through COVID, but I just want to check. Like if we have people doing overtime and such, like we have that line that's like $9,000 over in overtime, and we know that that was because of COVID, right? Extra cleaning. Was any of that reimbursable?
I think we're still working with Glenn. There's been kind of a back and forth as far as what things we submitted, because I had written a document and then I think all of that didn't get clarified yet. I just sent it back and we're cross-referencing with POs in that document to make sure that we're getting reimbursed for as many of the things as we possibly can back through March.
Okay, because no, the facilities director salary, I think, I'm not sure why that's over, other than if he had to work extra because of COVID. This is like $5,000. I'm just looking at several things here that I know that a lot of this had to do with COVID, that we were, supplies for custodian, we're $25,000 over in that line, which is huge. And I would think that's all COVID related. So I hope that's included. I would think we should be able to be reimbursed for any cleaning materials and that type of thing.
Did we just get a list of, am I making that up?
No, I believe we have received them.
I can,
You have received the list?
no, I'm just saying that but this will be crossed off. I mean, this money will still be in the budget because we'll be reimbursed for it, is what I'm asking.
I believe so. I mean, I've submitted all of the things that we purchased that, you know, we were asked to give a detailed list of anything that was COVID related going back to March. And then we submitted that. I think somehow all of that didn't get looked at. So I sent that to Glenn again, and I know that we're cross-referencing that with purchase orders to make sure that it's aligning. And so that's a work in progress to make sure that all of the things that should be reimbursable are being.
Good, great. All right.
Yeah, so this is in there, so-
On to page 29. Any questions on page 29?
When we did our rubbish, is that like the total? Was it just a bid? So that difference should be encumbered? So that's like confusing me. Do you remember, Erica? Was that Carrie? Was that a bid for the rubbish removal, like a total? Or was it an estimate?
I believe that.
We just got something like 2 meetings ago. The rubbish removal.
The rubbish removal?
Yeah. It just says we have almost $9,000 left in that line, and I would
And it
bet that we
went up.
don't.
We
Yeah,
did that just a couple of meetings ago, we got the new contract and it went up.
right, but that's for next year, right? That was-
Oh, was that the one that started July 1st? Yeah, you're right.
I just would think that we probably, that money probably would be encumbered. That was my question, because that sort of makes you think you have more money.
I haven't heard anything about running over,
Okay,
needing extra.
I've noted that line, and I'll have Mr. Warren look into it.
thank you.
No others, the last page of that would be page 30. This is the last page of your monthly financial.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yep, any more questions for 29?
Yeah, down towards the bottom. Did we seriously budget $10,000 for homeless transportation?
Yes.
Mhm.
At the time, you had a student who needed it, who has then moved.
I didn't remember it being 10, I remembered it being high, I just didn't think it was
Yeah,
10. Okay,
because that is one line, you don't separate, so, meaning the one line is for your high school and elementary.
right.
And you did have a
No,
student.
I remembered it was a chunk, but for
Yeah.
some reason I didn't think it was 10, I thought it was 6 or something.
I'm feeling this is less confusing. I know.
Ask me later.
It takes a while, plus it's responsible.
Yeah, I need new glass.
I actually wanted to get a magnifying sheet.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at the.
This discussion is good.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so page 30 is your last page, and that tells you where you're currently at as we sit. What's been encumbered and what is your budget balance? We know that that's not the balance that you're moving forward with at hand, but that's going to be currently at as we sit. Okay. So then when we move on to page 30, no questions on page, 31, if there's no questions on 30. This is your REAP grant, and what everything has been spent on for your REAP grant at this point.
Does this expire in July or in September? When does this expire?
September, but I'm getting ready to spend it.
Yep, okay, that was my question, okay. All right, thank you.
Page 32 is an additional REAP grant. This is the 2021, and that one won't expire until the following September. Page 33 is your Title I, Part A.
I have a question, Nate. I know that we haven't found someone for this position. Are we able to extend this and use it during the summer program? Like, because we have certified teachers who might want to take this position during the summer?
You can use your Title 1A funds for summer, summer school and summer works, yes.
So like a
You have
summer
to use-
tutor?
Yep, you would be responsible for funding it with your, you can't supplant, but if you're going above and beyond, you can utilize this funds for summer programming as well.
So then it gets down to balancing out what should go into ESSER and what should go into this, or come out of.
Or just an additional staff member who wants to tutor one-on-one or small groups.
Sure, but ESSER could also be used for that, so I'm just saying,
When does this expire, this now?
This one should be expiring the fall, September 2022, I want to say.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
so we
you
have time.
time,
Oh, we
yes.
do have time, okay, all right, so that's, I was thinking that was this September.
No.
Okay, so we have
I
time.
would be more concerned then.
Okay.
Okay, so the next page, 34, is your Title 2A, Title 2 Part A funds.
Nate, remember you said that one of the things we needed to look at for our new SAU is to make sure we had people who were Title IX certified.
That is correct.
With this grant and the other Title IIA, are we, I don't know if we have anybody who's Title IX certified, do we?
In your current district?
Right.
By itself, no, not to my knowledge. So one of the things that you would want to look at is in your hiring, when you hire your new director or your administration in the building, as well as your superintendent. If your superintendent isn't currently trained on the new Title I regulations, you're going to want to get them all certified. Because your superintendent also has to hold that, the new updated training. I don't know if Mr. Freeman has that training. He's going to need that training because he sits as a quasi judicial body as well. And some of those, he will have a kind of last call before they come to a board. So he's gonna have to be trained in that, and then any other staff. My recommendation is to have 3 members of your staff trained in this, okay? Because you have 3 separate roles and you want to make sure that you have, that's a minimum. If you can have a 4th, that's great, because you would want in a small district, and I know Mr. Freeman has some connections. If you have someone who has investigated a situation once and there's been a finding, you might not want them to investigate that same situation or a situation with similar people. You might want to have a different investigator, just to have some clarity. So it is nice to have, a couple people who are certified across the gamut, not just in one phase. Okay?
And if we needed to, these funds,
Yes,
if they're not
that is-
earmarked for something else, could be used for that training?
Yes, that's. So, page number 35 is the same thing, well, not the same, but it's, your older grant, your newer grant from the old one. So this one that you have here for the page 34, that's the one that's ending in this September. So if there are funds available, I would use those this summer to get some training.
Okay.
And then the same thing with 35, that will be expiring the following September.
Okay.
Page number 36 is your 4A. Your 4A is also PD. That's a really good use of PD for that if you're going to be looking at 4A. So that's 36 and 37 are your PD. These can be to bring in people or to send staff out.
Did they expire September?
Your one on page number 36, because that's your 18-19, will expire in September. But your one on 37 is an additional year. That one actually might be September as well. I have to look at it. I don't have access to these grants, but looking at the 1920, anything that's 1920 would be last year. So I want to verify that they did. I don't keep track of the title grants as often because they have separate rules than the special ed grants. This is something to keep an eye on. So, page 38 is your reallocation of special ed, the one-time reallocation that they looked at. That does end this September. If you're looking at that currently, what I can share with you right now is what you have available at the end. As of right now, you have all but $102 budgeted. So, and that will be utilized. And that was what I spoke to the board about, last meeting. So looking at your following grant on page 39, this is your 1920. This one will expire on September as well. And you can see that there's still a considerable amount left. However, utilizing some of the things that you're going to need to put in place for next year, you'll wind up spending that down. When I say considerable, it's not huge, but there is some money left, so we'll be able to spend that down. Page number 40 is again your IDA, and that is the current year. There's less budget in there, and there'll be more available, and that one will carry out for another year after this September coming up. It's a fall. You have that 27 months, so you have some more time.
September 22.
22, yes. Okay, and then on page 41, that's your last that's your last IDA grant. With looking at page 41, what you're looking at there is that's the remote grant, and we have done a pretty good job of bringing that all the way down. We do have about $391 left that I'm looking at, trying to figure out the best way to utilize that without you going into any of your other funds. So how can we maximize that without overspending it to go into other needs? And a lot of this was summer school stuff through CBNA and some of your other things to offer remote. Because this one is very limited to remote only as well as special ed only. So it was, believe it or not, when they gave you this one, this was a little harder to work with. Then looking at page number 42. Page number 42 is one of your ESSER grants. It's CARES ESSER 1 by the look of the report that Mr. Waring put together. So looking at that, that just kind of shows you where you're currently at.
Does this have an expiration date, this one?
That, it does have an expiration date. I do not want to misquote the date, but it does have an expiration date. I'm not 100%, maybe Miss Gregorian knows this date a little bit better.
I thought this was the one that, everything needed to be in the building by the 30th of December. So this is one that we're still working on, going back and making sure that everything that we purchased and utilized was applied to this.
I did not think that was this one. I thought that was the SPR grant. This is the ESSER grant, so this one's a little bit different. So you have
Okay.
ESSER CARES 1 and ESSER CARES 2. So this one is your CARES 1. I can find out the date for you.
We just don't want it to be,
Right.
to expire and not use it.
I agree. Page number 43 is your cash flow, your in and outs. I don't want to attempt to go over all this. This is Mr. Waring's creation here for the in and out of the flow. I think you can see kind of how it works, but if you do have any questions about it, I'll write them down and make sure he gets them. Okay, so then looking at page 44, that is your current cash balances. Page 45 is your current list of your expenditures. You would ask kind of what was going on this year, running total of expenditures, COVID impact.
I was looking at this, I'm gonna get my reading glasses up. Because it's hard to see this one. It just seems like all the bus transportation, everything's included. I mean, we're not gonna be getting reimbursed for all of our bus transportation, all of our transportation for this year, right? I mean, so it confuses me, this page.
So I can, I can work with Fred on this to see what's acceptable, but your bus transportation is something that you would have already incurred. This isn't a COVID specific. I think if you had to spend separate funds and do additional runs, you might be able to.
And I'll be on, that's another part of the principal's report.
Okay. It's just that it's included on the financial impact report. And so you look at that and you say, wow, that's a lot. They're including, $250,000 worth of busing.
You can include the portion of the busing that you paid even though it wasn't in session. That could be a cost.
Okay.
Because you gotta remember, you honored your contracts even when they weren't in use. And I would say that would have been a COVID-related expense to honor your contracts. That's something I would much rather have Mr. Waring answer.
Okay.
But I would say that if you honor a contract that you're not using solely because you're honoring for the purposes of COVID as you were asked to by the state of New Hampshire, I would say we should be able to utilize those expenses.
Okay, all right. Everybody see what I'm talking about there? And also look at wages and benefits. We have $167,000 included. So that's where my question is.
So if I may, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I think a lot of this is put in here for the hopes to be able to ask for additional funds, or if there are funds available. I don't know that the state will approve all of them, but it's to show a running record of your expenses that you haven't incurred to this date.
Okay.
It's one of those things like they might not all be ESSER related and be able to be written into ESSER because of the restraints that ESSER has put on the districts on how to do that. But it is a COVID related expense, and that might be something that we look at down the line to continue to work with the state to get additional reimbursement or loosen the constraints, especially when you're looking at the future allotment of funds that are going to be given in the next round of money. Can those be tied to? Are there going to be less restraints? Because the first time that this came around, when you're looking at I can never SFSPR funds, those first rounds, those were really strict and very short timeline. And the ESSER was pretty strict, and ESSER 2, same guidelines. What we're trying to do is find out if they're going to loosen the wording and expand what we're allowed to fund with it. As long as it can be tied to COVID, but it's still pretty tight, even though we can say it's tied to it, they can say, no, it's not directly tied. So it's one of the things that we're going to continue to work on. And I imagine Mr. Freeman will be doing the same thing down the line. So page 46 and 47, 43 and 49 are your audits. I will tell you, I have very little information about this. This audit stuff is not my expertise. So if you have questions, I would be happy to bring it back to Mr. Waring, but I can't give you much information on this.
I know we made a motion to continue for the next year with Plasmic several meetings ago.
And this letter is pretty boilerplate. I mean, I think it's the same one we get every year,
Right.
essentially, because it's just informational. It's no.
You know what? Let's look at the date on this, December 22nd. Do you remember this may be a copy, because remember the copy we got in our packet was, we couldn't read it. It's so dark.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a copy of it, because look at the date.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we had already approved this. So-
Right, I agree.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that also goes into page 50, that last little bit. And then that is all for the business administrative report.
Did a good job, Nate.
Thank you. So my report is going to be much shorter. I just want to let the board know that Mrs. LaValle and I have been working with the preschool to secure what is needed to make sure we maximize your preschool funds out of IDA to order those things for some of the student-specific matters and what they might need moving forward to utilize those funds before they expire. We've also been working with the special ed department to start determining what is going to be needed for your ESY for related services and how we might be able to get those things covered with PSAs through different organizations if we don't have staff in the building who are able to do summer school, ESY. And with that being said, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and I kind of mentioned it the last time, is you're going to need to make some decisions as a board on your PSAs and how you want to move forward. I've been asked not to write anything into IDA moving past the year that I'll be working with you. Two items that usually go into your IDA funds are part of your PSAs, and they're part of the PSA that you do with Strafford Learning Center.
Excuse me, it's a purchase and sales agreement.
Sorry. You had asked when they needed this by. I have received a letter from Strafford Learning Center that says they would like their commitments no later than March 19th so that they can plan. In the letter, it does state that if you have any questions or need any extended timelines, you may reach out to them. I've also done that on your behalf and said, what would be the chances of being able to extend this? And based on the two that you have with them for, that come out of your grant, one being school psychologist and one being occupational therapy supervisions. Mr. Murphy was very clear with me that if we hold off on the school psychologist, because it's such a need across districts, that he could not guarantee that he will have somebody for you because he had to push and pull to get to dates that you needed for this one. So I guess my question to the board would be, what is the board's decision on whether or not you would like me to sign these PSAs for the 19th?
Can we let Mr. Freeman weigh in because he's been part of this
Whatever you like.
discussion? Mr. Freeman, do you have an opinion?
I do and I don't. I know that this position has been considered along with a combination or an exchange with an assistant principal position, potentially other administrative positions. And I'm 100% in favor of anytime we have an opening, that we reconsider the position and take a look at duties and the org chart, et cetera. Quite honestly, I do not have enough information to make a recommendation. What I've heard is that, from individuals, from board members, that there's some interest in taking a look at a different structure, and I'm also supportive of that. As I said, anytime we have a chance to do that without impacting individuals, I think it's a good thing to do. It seems as though the time is short, and I would object to being asked to make a decision and get a response in 2 days. I don't think that's reasonable. I understand his position though, because of the shortage of folks and because of the April 15th deadline that he would face in terms of letting anybody go. If it were up to me and if we had time, I would structure a study of the needs of the school, the current functioning of the positions, and then perhaps even consult with the oncoming principal and director of student services with some facts and numbers. If we're talking about numbers of students, numbers of cases, number of severe discipline cases, number of minor discipline cases, other functions of these positions, it seems as though if we had that sort of data, we could make a more informed decision. Either way, I'll respect the board's decision and will do my best to make anything work, honestly. But I just think I can't tell you. I can't tell you. In previous positions, we've changed the jobs, some of these jobs around very dramatically, but it's with data in front of me and it's with information about the needs of the students and the district. I just don't have that now to make a recommendation. I'm sorry.
And just to be clear, this deadline was not just sprung on us. It's not, I mean, the specific date for the return might have been sprung on us, but we've had a number of meetings where we've known this discussion is going to have to happen around the PSAs.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be fair to Strafford Learning, if they didn't just give us a 2-day notice.
Yeah. Well, I assume that experienced board members or veteran board members know that this thing comes up every year at this time. And I know that there's been discussion, but there hasn't been resolution. And I wish I could be more helpful, but I just don't have even as much information as you all do, sorry to say. And I'd like to be able to guide you in decisions that are based on data, based on actual needs, and based on the experiences. Taking a look at the history, et cetera, but I can't do that right now.
Anybody have anything to say? Input?
I think, I don't know that we have a choice, as somebody who works in the field, to say there's a critical shortage of school psychologists is sort of an understatement. And, where I work, we've had postings for 3 years and not getting filled.
If I could add to that, we have had in my previous position, we have had either 2 or 3 years where we've had to take a student intern and then pay for supervision from a university professor to make sure that what that school psychologist did was, met standards, and provided supervision for that person. It is a critical shortage area, as Erica said, and it's very, very tough to get. It's very tough to keep people unless you're paying the top dollar for it.
Right, do we have a
Look,
motion?
Nate, didn't we look before just to have a basis of comparison of what it would be to go through Saras instead, and it was like twice as much, wasn't it?
We did. It was more expensive. Additionally, just to make sure that this puts a little ease to Mr. Freeman, I do want to let you know that this was all made based on 3 years of data and what this position would do, because this position doesn't just do your school psychology in this building, it also covers the needs of your high school students at Co-Brown. So this is about 2.5 days, and that is still low. I'm just gonna let you know that was about what he could offer to me, and that will only give you evaluations. It won't give you a lot of in-building MTSS style interventions with the school psychologist. So we'll give you that, and if there's any leftover time, she'll work with the staff, or the individual will work with the staff. But this is something that I did look at for data, and it is someone who is known to the SAU, not necessarily who has worked with your students on a regular basis, but does know the structure. And I do feel as though in the short term, it is the best solution. If moving forward, you were to find someone who could do both roles, as you had said, restructuring, reorganizing, that would give them a year to hit the ground, develop their rapport with the staff, develop stuff, and then you can disembark from the PSA moving forward. That would be my recommendation. Considering it has been in your IDA grants for longer than I've been a part of the district.
So do you need a motion?
I don't really need a motion. I just need a consensus that it's okay to sign this, and
Okay, so it's a 1 year, basically, contract.
yeah. Okay, so I will sign this, and what I will do in addition to signing this is I am going to write it into your grant, even though we discussed that these will be the only things, and then because it does carry into the following year that I'm not there, but it will be in place for years.
Great, thank you. And did you have anything else?
No, that's it. Like I said, I just wanted to focus on those two. those items.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, principal report?
So the first thing you guys have in front of you is the proposed calendar for next school year. That's good. It does coincide, I believe, with Co-Brown and the breaks. I think there were no significant changes, making sure that we were still meeting CBA requirements, and just made minimal adjustments to a very similar calendar to this calendar.
I'm sorry, you said you did not break the program.
I believe, yes, and I apologize because we did this actually a bit ago, and we just haven't had, I think we came up with this probably a month ago, and I believe we did coincide that with the program.
And it looks like the teacher workshop days are basically the same that we've had in the past couple of years.
Yeah. Minimal changes.
All right, are people ready to adopt this?
So thinking ahead,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of snow days, remote days,
Mhm.
going into the future. Would this be the time to consider a policy, something like, we are saying school will be done no matter what on, I guess, June 16th, just a quick glance, I think is what it's saying. And that throughout the year, we will determine if it's a remote day or a snow day, but no matter what, so that we don't have, do you see what I mean?
I hear
So
what
that
you're saying.
families know this is the drop dead date, school will be done on this day, no matter what. And then during the winter, we can take it on a case by case basis.
Where
If
are
we
the
call-
snow days? Are there snow days built in here?
No, but usually it's like, this is the predicted last day, or I guess this one doesn't have the snow days
This
built in
doesn't have
at
the
the
snow
end,
days,
like,
right.
usually we say this will be in reserve for snow days.
I honestly think that that's like a whole nother discussion, and this doesn't even have snow days built into it. So this does have the 16th as the last day. And if the kids need to go like a couple other days, we could decide. I think that is a philosophical discussion about snow days and a policy. That would be a long discussion. So I don't know if you want to accept this now or put this off.
No, we could accept it if.
Does anybody want to make a motion? Or are you ready to make a motion? Would you like to wait? People, anybody ready?
I move that we accept the proposed calendar for the 21-22 school year.
We have a second. All right, I'll second it for discussion. All right, do we have discussion?
It does say at the bottom that the board reserves the right to amend, so
There you go.
anything
Great.
changes.
Great. Good. All right. All right, no other discussion? Okay. Liz? Yes, okay. Eric?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
And Debbie, yes. All right, with that taken care of, thank you. All right, so next, Kathy, do you,
I do. I have a nice, rather lengthy, I apologize, report from the administration. If everybody can hear me, I'd rather stay here. I know that I'm dressed fabulously, but probably
If you
easier.
just pull the mic over.
Sure. I would love to. I'll sing a little karaoke. Yeah. Is that better?
Right.
Okay. So go ahead, you can see, I mean, the first page. So ultimately, some of this is from the original, the report that I prepared that Bruce had asked us to hold off on, so I wanted to go ahead and share some of that information. So the first page, really just talking about together a lot of the things that we've accomplished so far this year. So as of today was the 90th day that we have provided face-to-face instruction out of a total of 118 school days. And honestly, although that doesn't sound like a lot, there really are still kids who have never stepped foot in the building and outside of our school. So I think I say that with a lot of pride for the staff and for the school and for the community, that I think that's pretty amazing that we've been able to do that. Something else we've been able to do is we really have provided a buffet style of choice for remote or face-to-face learning, depending on family comfort and request. And we've been able to accommodate, I think, virtually every single request from parents if they wanted to make an adjustment or a switch or whatever they were comfortable with. I think that says a lot about our staff. Minimal disruption to learning, ultimately just to point out that we've had no full school pivots to remote, which I think is pretty remarkable again. How did we do it? Ultimately a team effort. A lot of the precautions that were put in place, I don't necessarily need to read all of them, but, you know, the assigned staff, the cohorts, the plexiglass, the minimal travel in the building, the mask use policy that was updated each time there was a CDC recommendation to change, designated bathrooms for every grade level to minimize kind of if there was any kind of cohort crossing. I'm going quick, Aaron, I apologize. Continued team effort, designated spaces for staff to eat lunch and do prep and planning. Designated entry and exit doors for grade level cohorts. If you haven't been here for an arrival or dismissal, it's quite a process. But I think pretty amazing to be able to really minimize any COVID exposures. Separate playground areas for each classroom and cohort, separate recess equipment, extensive training and reinforcement of the hand washing, limiting the number of students per bus to 26. Thank you to so many of the parents who've been transporting their kiddos. I think some of the reason that we dress up on some of these days, they get a kick out of it. We had quite a few videos and photos taken of ourselves today. And then also pointing out that multiple buses, and at the time, at this point, it is 4 buses that are doing double runs. So they are going out, getting kids, bringing them here, and going back out and getting kids again to maintain those low numbers. It really did, I think, look easy on the outside, but on the inside, just wanted to share kind of some of the things that, you know, that we did that people wouldn't know. Cohorts and classes were changed to accommodate the remote and face-to-face needs. Obviously, we had a placement day last year. All of those things changed when we started the school year, so we completely redid all of the classes. And continued to make those adjustments as kids were coming back. Staff were traveling to the cohorts instead of the kiddos traveling. With a lack of substitutes, staff were shuttled to cover vacancies and absences in order to keep kids in the building. This allowed us to remain open, but it did expose us, and I think we experienced that when we did have the little cluster of the positive COVID. Just again, a shout out, tremendous team effort from the staff to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students. It's just, I can't say enough about the things that folks did to make all of this happen. You will start seeing the next couple slides are going to be some of the things that I said, oh, we're going to see that in the principal's report. The next one is just a recommendation. Certainly it's not next year, but I know it's March, but there certainly could be another snow event. So just a recommendation for snow days versus remote days, and kind of outline down there that we don't do remote learning for the primary and elementary grades. Projects and packets and other materials could be provided for them on those days, but that we would not require a remote learning on that day. Middle school, provided there was not a power outage, in talking with the middle school teachers, they felt pretty strongly that they were able to provide that remote instruction and it was effective. So we would go along with that. And in the event of a power outage, certainly providing, not blizzard bags, we're not looking at going that way, but you know, some packets and materials that kiddos could be working on. That's just a recommendation, you know, certainly, that's the board prerogative. Here comes some fun stuff. Looking ahead, third trimester, which is, oh my goodness, next Monday. Just some things to point out that, you know, staffing challenges, including the real shortage of paraprofessionals, and we are back down to our grand total of substitutes right now. I know everybody brace yourself. It is 0.5. That's how many subs we have. We have a half a person as a sub. But we're, you know, we keep rocking. We have a phenomenal group of folks that are keeping that going. I have a question about remote learning on there, but then I'm gonna share, I think, some thoughts about what we would like to do with that. A little bit later, you'll see some preliminary, just really basic, EMA scores done by broken down by primary, elementary, and middle school. So we will be looking at that and really starting to look at how that's going to drive our instruction, you know, in the spring and into the summer. Suggestion that we, you know, as things start to open up and possibly looking at some field trips and maybe for some of the other grades, but definitely some things with the 8th graders. This is not in your packet, but I wrote it down, so I think I will say it as nice and clear and wonderful. We are planning to continue with the remote instruction that's being provided in our pre-K through 1. And since we are low in terms of staffing and additional folks, we are going to utilize that person. The numbers have gone down, but since we can use grant money, we want to continue with that stipend for that person for the 3rd trimester. It would come out of ESSER money, so it does not have anything to do with athletic funds or anything like that, but continue to do that. And this is a person that we've spoken with who would be able to provide some of those extra services for some of those kiddos who might be struggling but are not IEP kiddos. So really just a great opportunity for us to have a certified teacher provide some extra support. So that's the direction we're going with that. Did you already turn the page on me? Mary. Wow, you're
No,
just,
she skipped, you go back.
are we on the last day of school?
Just say next page, and I'll do it.
Okay, gotcha. So we are on the last day of school page, Karen. So based on just as a a recap, that we did have a staggered start with some of our younger kiddos. So this is taking into account what the staggered start was and staggering the end date for kids by grade level based on when they started. So we are recommending that we go along with that based on the staggered start dates. Just more informational, and if the board was okay with that, that's our intent, and you'll see, we're gonna use some of those days with, some of the younger kiddos on, I think it might be next page here. And magically, there you have kindergarten screening information. So those days that kiddos won't be in kindergarten, that's a great opportunity for us to do the kindergarten screening, have the folks in here. The information on that in terms of the sign up genius and the 1 hour blocks with the 5 students, that is what we did in the spring, or actually I guess it was in August, it was normally in the spring. It worked out really well to have the folks there, the parents came in, they met, I met with them in the gym, and then took them on a tour of the building and spoke with them while the teachers and the specialists were doing those screenings. So we want to continue with that process. And just noting that the packets for kindergarten can be found online, or you can call and pick them up in the office. Next page. Some of the safety protocol changes, just thinking about as we have more kiddos coming. Bus numbers, we're currently capped at 26. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a couple slides, but that's currently what we have. Class space, social distancing, we are recommending to decrease the social distancing, which of course at this point the CDC has done, taking it down to 3 feet. So that helps us out certainly as we have more kiddos wanting to return. The numbers returning update as of today, starting on Monday, we will have 41 remote kiddos at that point. Another thing that the future of remote learning, I think I already kind of touched on, we want to continue as we're going with that. Staff vaccinations, as I think everyone knows, thanks to Kathy Cunningham and you know, the nurses and the folks, honestly, at Northwood as well, set up a fantastic, very well organized, it was just a very streamlined, great process for folks to get their first vaccine yesterday. I can certainly say that my arm is killing me. It's very uncomfortable and unpleasant. And I know this is, you know, it is what it is. The date that they assigned for us for our second shot, it is a Monday. It is the 5th. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. I know there's a lot of information out there about the potential impact of how that shot, this is a sore arm. I think the second shot, there's a lot of information out there about how it impacts, so we'll go from there. At this point, we don't know what our schedule is. Yesterday, we had a set kind of schedule that was arranged for us. I can't say exactly what the 5th is going to look like in terms of school, or quite frankly, the 6th, because we don't have that specific information. We just know that's our date. So I will continue to share that as I have more information. Turn the page. Am I going too fast right now? No? Perfect, okay. Spring reports. So we are recommending that we proceed with baseball and softball. We do know that a schedule has been set up with Strafford included through the, and I always forget if it's a district, is it a district that we're a part of?
The league.
A league, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Dole, Coach Dole. So that has already been set up, and you know, they sent us some of that information. There was also a question about cross-country. I don't know. I think we certainly could possibly do that, nobody has asked me, but I saw that other schools were doing that, so possibly having something like that. And then there's the challenge is that position-wise, we do have a softball coach. We do not have a baseball coach. We do not have an AD. I did send out an email seeing if anyone was interested in any of those stipended positions, and the response that I got was crickets. So I have not heard from anybody who would be interested in any of those positions. So I'm not sure, do we expand that to go outside of school staff? I'm not sure where we go from there. I don't know if there's a question or discussion on that. It just-
You definitely need a baseball coach, so I would think, usually, according to the CBA, it goes to the staff first. If we have no response, then I would go outside, because the kids can't have a team without a coach.
Sure, and I think the bigger one is the athletic director. So there is no athletic director, and, that person is responsible for hiring the coaches, arranging all the umpires, and doing all of the contracts, so that's kind of a big spot to fill. We can certainly, I can, send that, again, I sent that out, I think, last Friday, and I did not get any input from anybody.
If you're talking about having spring sports, I would definitely be in favor of allowing the kids to play outside, because it's, we're not inside, they have plenty of space. I would support both the baseball, softball, and cross country.
And we're definitely in support of that, but I just want to be clear that if we don't have an athletic director, we don't have spring sports. So I don't know where we go from there. I can't make somebody take that role, but so I think we're all in agreement, we'd love to have it.
Would the vote be posted outside?
It can be.
Outside of the school.
Yeah.
Yep, we certainly can do that. So is that, I don't know, and I would kind of defer, I don't want to be speaking to the audience, but I don't know what the time frame is. I think we're in a unique situation. Since we had nothing, I think we want to go ahead and put that out there. Okay, so we'll work on getting that posted, that we're looking for an athletic director as well as a baseball coach and potentially a cross country coach.
And that would be prorated, since most of the years, yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy, I don't want to derail your report, but since we're sort of on it, not being a sporty person, but having other activities, thank you.
I did have that on here originally. I took it off, honestly, because I hadn't spoken to the person who I knew had done that, and I wasn't sure. It was included originally as a part of this. I think that would be great, so I can add that to the list.
But that, I'm not speaking for the board, but if we're gonna allow sports to go, then we have to allow the kids who are not sporty to have
No, I
something as
hear
well.
what you're saying. It's they just have to probably watch the distance in here.
Right, well, they might be able to find a place outside for a lot of it. That's what Co-Brown is doing in production, and they're doing it outside.
Okay, yep, I will add that to the list.
We have empty parking lots.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, yeah, I always just think the other kids outside when they could.
So, hey, Aaron, thank you. So this is a really preliminary for a lot of reasons. We do still have kiddos that are actually still taking some of the tests. So it's challenging, in terms of getting all of this. This is kind of, the real, high 30,000 foot view. We do have it, we are going to be breaking it down by grade level and getting more specific in terms of how we can use that to drive instruction. This is just to give a real overview. And I think the reality is that I don't think anyone expected that there wasn't going to be, that we were going to be, kind of at the top of the charts. And I don't think any schools are looking for that. But this is what teachers do. This is what educators do, is they take this kind of data and we come up with what do we need to do, where are the gaps, and how do we fill it. So I personally know that we have fantastic teachers and we have a great core group of data folks who are gonna work with us and get on this. So we're definitely gonna be utilizing this to drive spring instruction as well as things that we're gonna be doing in the summer. I would just put a plug that my concern all along, I know that teachers, this is the wheelhouse. I'm I'm worried about the social and emotional and mental well-being of our kiddos. That's something that we don't have a test. We don't see these things, but this kind of off year, I just want to kind of put a plug that I want to make sure that we're really looking out for that. Because that's something we really want to make sure that we help kids kind of gain those skills, because they pretty much missed a year of social and emotional. And some of the mental, just being alone and isolated so much, so. Any questions on that? Okay, I promise I'm almost
Some of
done.
the other districts, it's following the pattern of some of the other districts.
Sure.
Probably ahead of a lot of them.
Yeah, I was not, I don't think anybody looks and goes, oh, yeah, I'm thrilled with 60, but given the year that we've had, I'm not going, oh my gosh, we're so far behind. I think, and I've spoken with several teachers that I know that for teachers, they know that in March, my kiddos should be at this point. And they're looking and going, oh my gosh, my kiddos are not at this point. And just reminding them, you're not failing. You're not, that's not what's happening. What's happening is we've had a really odd year. And this is kind of where everyone is. And we're all gonna work together and close those gaps. And I have no doubt that the teachers are gonna do a fantastic job, and that's gonna keep coming, so.
And the interesting point is that we all thought that it was going to be reading that was going to suffer more, but it's math. And that's across the board, other districts as well. It's really interesting.
So impact of no longer having Flex Fridays, K-4, just a couple things to point out. The one, Deb, that you were talking about was gonna be the one down the block. Just kind of pointing out that UAs have lost remote instruction time because we utilize them to provide planning for the teachers. So now they're doing an additional class with K-4, so that the K-4 teachers have planning, which is cut back on remote instruction for those middle schoolers. It's just a fact. It's not, I'm not just kind of putting it out there. It also minimized the dedicated time for staff to meet across grade levels. And teachers' availability to work with individual students and work on that learning loss and those things on Friday, so they're not able to do that. It just, again, these are just kind of factual things. The transportation impact, and this speaks, I think, down to what you were sort of talking about. When we had Flex Fridays, and I don't know, I think I was the one who said that when the buses started doing the double runs, I think I said, well, it should just offset because they're not doing runs on Fridays. So it would just be about the same. So when we now jump back to not having Flex Fridays and we're doing double runs, I think the potential of a possible cost issue. But I'm happy to say that I spoke with Dale Transportation. I also spoke, I think everybody knows Eric is kind of the guru of the bus runs and all of those things. And we talked about increasing the numbers, and the drivers have been involved in this too, so I'm appreciative for them. They're looking at increasing the bus numbers to 38 and returning to single routes, which would keep us, where we would normally be. We're not ready for that. I don't have a timeline, certainly not Monday, but everyone is working to keep everything, get back to as much of a normal bus run as we can. And, as soon as we have that, I'll get that information out and we should be good to go, and we'll keep that from being an issue. So that piece, Deb, that you were talking about, I think we've already proactively, Dale has been fantastic saying,
That's
hey,
great.
we want to make sure we take care of this. So they've been great to work with.
Thanks for doing it.
Turn the page. Graduation plans. We met with the 8th grade advisors, and I think we're hoping for an outdoor event and possibly to live stream that. I don't know the logistics, Aaron, of how much of a nightmare that might be. But I think to be able to have an event outside and have an alternative date if we needed to, if the weather was bad. But we definitely want to have a way of celebrating for the 8th graders. Limited space depending on how we set it up for students and families. This is our recommendation. I know that there are people who are in love with the caps and gowns for the eighth grade. Our recommendation would be to not do that this year and have some of that savings be utilized to offset and do some other kind of field trips and celebrations for the eighth grade. Because typically the parents are paying for those, and I think it would be a way to offset and maybe be able to, not that there's anything wrong with the cap and gown, but I think the kids would probably appreciate some other kind of celebration versus having that. That's my opinion. I'm not speaking for the eighth grade or a parent. Just from an administrative standpoint, that's what we would suggest doing. And they wanted to continue with the Canopy Lake, hoping that that was something that would still be able to happen. And they mentioned proceeding with planting the trees that the last year's eighth grade purchased. So Carrie, you might know more about that than I do.
Yes, they put aside $600 towards, it got pushed back because it wasn't an emergency. And, I think it was like 3,100, 3,200 to cut the site and plant the trees. And both, the art teacher and her husband, who's a forester, you know, we got into it, and I felt really cool that the eighth grade did that, you know, and I hate to discourage it. I'd love to bring it back. I did have some ideas on the money part of it, but it would have to be, this would have to happen, that would have to happen, and this would have to pay for it, you know, without taking out.
And they raised money for this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they donated it. They donated, and I don't know, I'm disappointed, but it was a really cool idea, you know, and they were really proud of themselves. I'm sure.
It seems like you're looking at the budget, it looks like we have that money in there.
I'm fairly confident that Ms. Jordan also secured a lot of volunteer and donated labor.
Yeah.
So, as well as some additional plantings. So, if the board's agreeable, we would like to take advantage of it, especially the free stuff. And use those connections that the Jordans already have secured for us at zero cost.
Yeah,
So you're saying
we
there's-
had it all set up and then COVID hit, you know, kind of.
So Carrie, are you talking about that it's an additional 3,100 that
Well,
the kids need
Yeah, I
to
mean,
supplement what they've raised for the trees?
that was like the initial cost, but then, you know, I started working with the Jordans, and like Amanda said, you know, there was like a landscape company in Barrington that was willing to dig the holes, and then we put up the trees at a nursery wholesale, and it was really short money for, you know, replacing those dead trees, you know, and I wanted to proceed, but I mean, like, at the time, last time I talked about it, we were in emergency mode.
Right.
I think, looking at the budget, I think we can, if it's $3,000, I think we have to.
Well, it sounds like it's even
I'd love to make that
less.
happen.
3,000
That would make a lot of
students
people
that's now
happy.
donating.
Okay,
If they do the
so
holes.
maybe less.
That would make a lot of people happy.
I think,
I would agree.
Do it.
everybody okay with that?
Do it.
It's like consensus?
Yeah.
Okay,
So should we, ask Ms. Jordan to continue or to re-investigate those three contractors?
Yeah.
Great.
And
It's a community
Yes.
effort. That's what we want more.
Yes,
And the
they've got
whole-
the trees picked out, the money is sitting,
Mhm.
Yeah,
in an account waiting to be spent.
right. It was really cool. The species were really cool, everything, it was gonna be nice,
Great.
so.
I promise I'm almost done. I do want to just, so is the board okay with the caps and gowns?
I was going to ask you about that. I don't know what the cost is, and I don't know if the kids, even if we had caps, if that's less, because to have the tassel, I think that's a memory
I
for
think
kids.
it's close to 1,000.
For the, how about just the caps?
I'd have to ask.
Yeah, because, I mean, it is, the gowns are so hot. It's suffering.
Yeah, I mean, I support nothing, but
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, if, I can say personally, it was, by July 1st, it was no longer a memory for my kids.
right.
As opposed to high school.
but the cameras, I don't think are that important, but if, I mean, if the caps are reasonable, just a couple $100 or $300 or something. That's not to take everything.
Or maybe ask, I mean,
Just
ask them if they want a hat, or
That's what I.
something to do with tassels, so they have it just as a keepsake.
Right.
The tassel part is a keepsake,
It
it's
is.
pretty cool.
It is.
I'm thinking there's probably a lot of 8th grade girls, especially, who wouldn't want to walk around in just a cap. but-
Oh, yeah, they definitely have to have the tassel. Oh, yeah, if they have the cap, they have to have the tassel.
So we will research a little bit more and report that. 2 more pages. Thank you, Aaron. So this is just a quick facilities update, and I think, I won't get into a whole lot of detail. But when we did have the power outage, there was significant damage to the building. And if you've seen the things about the heat, the transfers, our intercom system, for folks that don't know, we have intercoms in each of the classrooms. We utilize those to call kids for buses and to communicate from the office. We didn't even realize what was happening. We were calling for kids and they were just not showing up. I walked down and I think we had 1, 2, 3, I think it's about 8 rooms that I walked in and it was dismissal time and the kids were all just sitting there quietly reading and doing their thing because the intercom system had blown. So the 2-way radio that we used to communicate with the bus as well. And I think we've had, is it ENE? Is that the company? A gentleman from there has been in the building every day since then and just continuing to find and address all of those issues. So we're just continuing to gather all of that and we did do an insurance claim at this point. So just letting folks know. So a lot of those, it's the boilers, it's the transfers, it's a lot of things. A nice spring, warm weather could not come sooner for us. So Gary and this gentleman, I jokingly said, I think you're employed by us now because you're here so much.
Was it a power surge or something?
I'll just leave it. So I think we do have more information rather than.
I definitely know what's going on. It's in Timex's hands right now, but I think in non-public, I would like to share some of this stuff.
Alrighty.
And the other one is just letting folks know, so our lovely dam that we in the past had to have a beaver trapper go out and get the beavers away from. We did get a letter from the state that, it was their most recent, assessment and kind of checkup of it, which when we got it, Gary and I looked at it and we were like, oh my gosh, it's a big thick packet and there's pictures and all these things they wanted done. And then we looked at the date and they had not been there since, I think it was 2019. So a lot of those things were, already addressed and already taken care of. So we did take a ride out there and just take a look at it and things look good. We have talked to the state, but just wanted to put it out there that, we've been asked to, we have to fill out a form and Gary's on top of that, but everything there looks good for now, but just wanted folks to know. And then my last slide is just a happy slide. Honestly, thank you to the Strafford School, the community and everybody's hard work. It has been an unprecedented year, but I have to say that everybody working together, it's amazing the things that we have all been able to accomplish this year. And I just thank you to the staff, thank you to the communities, to the community members, the kids. It's just, it really is impressive, what we've been able to do. And I'm just very thankful. So.
Board
that
thanks
is the
everyone.
end of my
Thank you
report.
for the administration. Thank you, teachers and staff. It's pretty awesome. We're one of the few communities that really have stayed in school. Alrighty, superintendent report.
Okay. The first slide is just your personnel report. At this time, there are no nominations, stipends, or resignations to recommend for the board tonight. Additionally, Dr. Hanson wanted to make sure the board knew that she has given Mr. Freeman access to, or Mr. Freeman has been granted access to Talent Ed to look at your applicants for the positions that you have open as a reviewer. So that is currently in place. So your correspondence that she has for you is NESDEC has offered to run a second semester / spring enrollment projection checkup, and this is at no cost to the school district, so they'd like to go ahead and do that for you if you'd like. Is that something you want me to have them do?
Okay with that? Yes.
Okay. So the school board timeline for March, these are some of the things that were on there, so you wanted to look at reorganization, investment, and fund balance policies. I believe that she asked me to have Ms. Helms speak to this if she wanted to about holding up on those policies, I believe.
They are, by suggestion of the auditor, they are reviewed every 3 years. So technically, I believe 19 was the last one, so technically we don't have to do it this month. And my suggestion had been moving that off and reviewing them, because I think we're going to find that July and August, we're going to have huge chunks of policy to review as 105. And I don't believe that with the fund, because we don't have to do it now, and because I don't believe there's going to be any substantial changes to the text, I recommended to Dr. Henson that we put that off and do it as part of the whole policy review, that we didn't need to do it tonight, or actually, I guess, next meeting. This would be the month to do it, but we don't technically have to do it this year, so that had been my recommendation, rather than do it now and review it in August.
And so do you think it's wise to any real changes to policies, we wait to bring Mr. Freeman on board?
Yes, well, and I had said, and he and I have briefly hit on this at other times, because there are some mandated ones that we're gonna need to get on the books and then transfer over in July. And I say transfer over just so that they say 105 and they, however we want to format it. And I have to assume, although I have not asked this specifically, that we are actually going to have to re-adopt every policy as our own SAU or not. I don't know.
I would think not, because they were adopted by the Strafford School.
Okay.
District. So I think you would be okay continuing it, as you said, Erica, a thorough review after you get going.
But so there are some mandated ones that we are going to have to do this spring. I say mandated, new things from the legislature. And there are some things that we're going to have to do in the coming months.
So I will have those policies, if it's good with the board, not brought forward for the next meeting, just to hold on to those. Okay. So your discipline data that was going to be presented by the administration, that will not be presented at this meeting, but I think it's up to the board to determine when you would like to have that discipline data presented at a later time. So that is up for the March timeline as well. So your state updates, this was already touched on a little bit. We already had our first vaccine was yesterday for our schools, and again, I'm going to shout out to the nurses for really pulling this together. It was kind of a last minute thing. We worked together Friday, and we were able to, with nothing on the horizon Friday, to get it done and in line and in place by Tuesday because of their hard work and dedication. So that was really nice. And what is said, we do have the April 5th date, which is a Monday. There were additional requests for Fridays and weekends. There are just none available because that's what every school wants right now. So we are going to be looking at it as a Friday, as a Monday clinic, and that does pose some questions on what Tuesday may look like. As I know all the board has heard with some potential side effects or staffing issues, and we'll just have to look at it that way. as well as building a schedule that might be able to keep school in session on Monday as well. So it's what do we have to look at? So those are the types of things. So currently right now, this is a big one. I figured that we'll slow down a little bit on this one. It's just Strafford School, COVID, current quarantine, 0 across the board.
Nice.
So that's very nice. That's nice to see. So then when we look at your statewide and community transmission, looking at March 16th as the date, currently we're in the green at 3.4 when we're looking at statewide, and we're looking at positivity rates for testing. When you're looking at your community, however, Strafford County still tends to be a little higher, and they are in the yellow zone at this time, so they're still in that substantial amount at 5.2. Miles, sorry. So when you're looking at the NHDHHS community transmission decision matrix, what you have to look at is the substantial and the moderate, and that's kind of where we're at, and you have to take the higher of the two. So we're at substantial based on those numbers. What that looks like is when we look at school, the level of school impact mixed with those numbers, currently we have a low when it comes to student absenteeism due to illness and transmission across facility to the faculty and facility as a low. However, our staff is strained. As you've heard, we have half a sub. Your administrators, often when I've had to call over and ask for some questions and some clarity on certain items that have come up, they're in classes subbing themselves. So your administrators are often in the class teaching, so they are pulling every which way. So kudos to them for really getting in and diving in with your amazing staff who's kept your building open, because if it was not for them, it would not be. Looking at that, looking at the fact that you do have a medium and a substantial together, solely because of school impact, you would still be recommended to be in hybrid, and that's currently what you are right now, the 4-1 flex. That is what's currently still in the recommendation based on the school impact. And that is all of Dr. Henson's slides. If there are any questions regarding these slides, I know you're kind of used to the health, the impact, the substantial. I'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions on that and or any questions about the clinics or anything else that you may have.
I just have a reminder, I think I'm looking at a calendar. Our next meeting is the 24th, and then April 14th, we have another meeting. Now, I'm not sure if that meeting is the meeting that we need to have people who are recommended to be renominated, but we also put out, I thought we extended the deadline. Was it to April 1st?
14th.
Was it the 14th for
Yes.
anyone who wanted to get to retire
Yeah.
and get the additional $3,000? I just want to remind that, because I guess it's going to happen at the meeting on the 14th. Because isn't it that you guys know the contract, is it the 14th that the contracts go out, or is it 15th?
Actually, when I looked back,
May 13th, right?
there's language about what goes out for people who are not being renewed.
Okay.
It's not as specific as about when the contracts have to be issued.
Okay.
That's a state.
I just didn't want to miss any dates looking at our meetings.
But they have to be signed by the 15th.
I thought that they were the 15th, April 15th, but I may be wrong.
I'm calling you back.
Okay.
There are two different RSA's, notification and opt-out, and then the requirement to have the contract given to them by a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Okay, so what those, and that depends, but the state has set the timeline of when the contracts need to be delivered as well. It's a state guideline. They also, I believe, have waived that timeline due to executive orders, but I think when you have already worked on your budget and gone through, you should be all set to do that. I'm just saying that there have been some waivers.
I'm just looking at the meeting dates, and I just wanted to put that out there, that we don't miss any dates. And we also did have that, was it April 14th? We
Yeah.
extended the deadline for the
Yeah.
$3,000,
Yes.
the retirement notice. Okay.
The box.
Okay.
And so we are meeting next week.
Yeah, I
Because
thought
when we
that
moved
was-
this meeting to tonight, there was some discussion of maybe that'll be our only March meeting. I honestly can't remember if we made a decision at that point. But because typically Bruce didn't like to make decisions until the meeting right before,
So why don't we finish the rest and then we get there.
just when we were going over dates.
Okay.
I wanted to.
All right. All right, so anything else for the superintendent? Thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
All right, correspondence and presentations. I did get an email, we were copied on an email to Kathy, the board was, and that was basically about a student and thanking the staff for the way they handled something. We also received an email from, is it Rick?
Shinchetti.
Yeah, and he wanted to know, Monica already responded, I forwarded it to her. Let me just get that. What time was that? Did we get that email this morning?
No. His was, I think, yesterday. Is the one that I forwarded you today was.
She answered it.
Right, Monica answered that one. Let me just look for
I don't
that.
see Jen here.
Okay. All right. All right, so Rick, which I'm going to forward this to Amelia. Rick wanted to know with the money that was passed for relief for school districts, additional costs caused by our response to COVID pandemic. So my question is, what is the board doing to get the relief we are entitled to? And
so should we also, I mean, just for clarity, that relief is in the form of reimbursement and based on need, it is not like the stimulus money that you get and it's going to go back to the taxpayers. It is for specific activities.
and Monica did respond.
Right, so it's not just, oh, here, have the money with no
Right.
accountability.
Things have to qualify.
Right,
And so Monica did respond to him, and he said the school board is in receipt of your message. You are correct. The Congress has authorized relief for schools very recently. School boards are not required to apply for funding for these monies. The New Hampshire Department of Education receives a block grant and then passes the funds along to the local school districts based on enrollment numbers. Strafford School District's allocation for this round of federal relief funding is $145,761. I attended a meeting with the finance director of the New Hampshire Department of Education with all the superintendents on Monday, and we were told that the state expects the funds to be in the bank this week. I hope this answers your questions. So I'm going to forward that to Amelia, please.
We have till 2023 to spend that?
Do we?
Yes, it's true, yeah, that last
Okay.
batch.
Oh, great, perfect. Oh, that's wonderful.
And I've already been working on it, so.
Okay. We also just received just a quick little email asking us if Jen,
and she's not here.
what's her last name?
Riddell,
wanted to talk about the, I don't see her,
lacrosse.
the lacrosse program, but okay. So that is it for the correspondence. Anybody else receiving? All right, committee updates. All right, the principal search committee. Do you want to give that update, Erica?
Things are moving right along faster than could be anticipated when you looked at it from the other side, from the starting side. I think we managed to meet 3 times. We've managed to meet 2 weeks in a row for the first time that there wasn't weather events on a Tuesday moving us out. So we have determined characteristics of a principal. I don't have their specific talking points. If you check the newsletter, something is going into the newsletter every week, but we've established the criteria and have started going through candidates.
John, do you want to add anything?
I think that, just to add that, I think the group has really come together and it's a diverse group, it seems to me. I don't know most of the people, but it seems like a diverse enough group that has resulted in really a broad agreement about the key competencies and the key sub-roles that the principal will be performing. So I think kudos to the group. In addition to Amanda in the office, who's done a lot of photocopying, and Linda over in the SAU office, who's given support as well.
And also to you, who you're doing a great job leading us. It's so professional and organized. It's wonderful. And we've had long meetings, maybe like 3-hour meetings. So,
Sorry about that.
no, it was good. Great. Transition committee, there are a few things to discuss. John has been working on posting the positions for the BA and for the student services director. And he's going to organize that group and how they are. We've had a couple of volunteers in the community with expertise in that area. We have Dwayne Ford, who volunteered, who is the BA from Bo, or Assistant Superintendent BA, who is willing to help us with that. And so John's on top of that. The modular, Carrie, I think we were going to work on meeting with John and some other people. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I did want to talk to John after the meeting, and I want to coordinate me, myself, Gary, John, and actually a gentleman that may be doing some carpentry for us. And I wanted, it's going to be John's office, and I want, we get together, get on the same page, and take care of it.
So you're going to organize a time to walk through so that we
Yes.
can plan out if we're going to do dividers or if
Right.
we could build another office or whatever.
Like I say, it's John. I really like to, it's gonna be his building and his office, and I want to know how we want it set up. It shouldn't take much, but there's a gentleman that we really like, that's done carpentry around here, and I want to give him first shot, first refusal on the work. Not a lot, but, just want to get it set up so everybody's happy. And that would be one less thing on my plate.
And we also, when we have our non-public later, I'm just going to fill the board in on some legal things our attorney has asked us to discuss. He would like to come to our next meeting. Well, that's what we were talking about, maybe having a meeting next week. We want to have a non-meeting with the board to talk about some of the legal things we need to go through for the transition, because there's pieces of information we need, there's some steps. So, and we'd like to include John with that. So I'll get into more details in non-public about that, and then we could decide if we want to have the attorney here. He would like to, he asked to come to talk to the board, so we can talk about that. Yes.
Before we went into non-public, I did have a couple of things on the facility. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good. That was at the transition.
Okay. So got some good news. The iWave technology is all installed. So we're breathing better air, whether we know it or not. And it came under budget. That was SO2, that was under SO2. That was, I asked for $9,500, and it came in at $8,650. So we saved on $850, and it's done. I want to ask the board if they can start the RFP process for the roof. And I have a template for that, so it's apples to apples. And I'd be willing to see Linda and help her with get that going. If you guys are okay with it.
Yes, because I think people are very busy. The sooner we get it out there.
Right.
Because you may not
Especially if
find
we're hoping to
someone,
get it
my
done
husband's
over
booking
the
until like, he's booking
Right.
like in December.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We're hoping to do it when kids aren't. Ideally, I would assume we want to do it when kids aren't in the
I'll do
building.
it this summer.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some people, and it's very doable this summer, but I just want to get it going. I just want
I think the sooner the
you
better.
guys
yeah.
to bless it. Also, your outdoor classroom, your pavilion, because it was your idea. And I don't want to take credit for everything, but this is yours. And Audrey wants to get involved with it. That's being reviewed by Fred Wolf, our grant guy, to see if it qualifies under the ESSER. And as soon as I hear, could be any day now, as soon as I hear from him, I'd like to get that going on an RFP, you know? Because that would be really, really cool. And Audrey, I was talking about, Audrey, you know, she has some, she wants to be involved with it as far as, the design, the placement, stuff like that. So I think that would be really nice.
I think it's a fantastic idea, but I would like to see stuff before it goes out for proposal to build it.
What's that?
I'd like the board to see a plan and discuss
Oh,
what
yes,
we're looking for
yes.
before it goes out. for-
It's a,
I mean,
I just want to see if I get the money first.
Right.
Yeah, then we can do all that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's something that I'd like to get done. So, yeah, it's not a real huge project, but I don't want to pay for it. I want
Right.
somebody else to pay for it.
If it qualifies, and if we're using it for this, well, you probably wouldn't get it done in time, but if we could use it for the summer program because we're having such a large summer program because of COVID, I mean, that would be great, but I don't know if you'd find anybody who could build it for the
Absolutely.
program. Yeah,
Well,
so
I think calling some favors.
people are waving, Kathy's waving, yeah.
Like, I just want to remind folks that we are planning on using ESSER funds for staffing for a lot of those things. So I just want to make sure that there is some of that money that from an administrative that we're
The
looking to
staffing is
utilize.
more
Yeah.
crucial.
Right.
Is this for the
I-
summer program?
I wasn't-
I think we're looking
It's
at
for
that
third
as well.
trimester and summer.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going to be a hog on it, but I want my share.
Free money, Jerry.
Do you think if we do have a meeting next week, would you have like a plan with that so that we would coordinate and not, make sure we have enough money for everything? Are you
Yes.
talking to Kathy and sorry,
I think we're still looking at how many kids we're gonna have. I mean, so we can start compiling that, but I don't think we're gonna have an exhaustive list.
okay. Well, whenever you're ready, just so that we don't overstep and not have enough money for the staffing.
I would just ask that we don't start making any commitments for an outdoor classroom until we actually figure out how much money we need to spend on staffing and supplies for learning costs.
Yeah, we have to coordinate all that.
All right. Okay, so that's it with committees. Anybody else have a committee? Okay. Set future school board meetings. Now, so you asked a question, Erica, about March 24th. I mean, the attorney does want to speak to us. Maybe after we have our non-public, you'll have a better idea and you can decide if you want to put that off to the 12th.
14th.
Oh, I'm sorry, look at the joint board to the 14th.
And then looking ahead, the second April one isn't on here,
Yeah,
happens to fall on the 28th, which I believe is school vacation, which
Right.
might be used by our administrators and takes me out.
okay,
I'm just thinking ahead,
Right.
and just putting it out there.
okay. All right. So
Oh,
maybe
and
after.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
The 12th, the joint board meeting is at 6 o'clock this time and not 6:30,
Mhm.
because their transition team for their life without Strafford is going to meet after.
Okay,
So 6 o'clock for the joint board meeting with hopes that it'll go very quickly and then the Strafford folks can leave.
all right. So as far as the 24th, how about after non-public, we can come back and make that decision, okay?
Sure.
All right. Under other, everybody should hand out the BMSI proposals. So basically what happened is, you remember our last meeting?
Take one more.
Do you have an extra one? Aaron has it, okay. Okay, at our last meeting, if you remember, I made a motion and we approved to purchase the web ledger from the BMSI, and that is basically for the financial, this is for the financial software. And that basically is a lot of the raw financial information. Now, Aaron, who has been so wonderful, has been really our person who's been working with them. They said, hey, you know what? You can just pay the $10,000 now, but we'd like to install it all now. you could pay us the difference, which we were planning on purchasing all of this July 1st, because we budgeted in our budget for next year, but they would like to install it all now and get everything going. I think it's a great idea, and they're not expecting to get paid any more than the $10,000 we already accrued, which is coming out of the one-time adequacy grant that we had a balance of $10,000 left. So I didn't want to sign this and go forward without the board understanding that. So does anybody have any questions? Because I can make a motion and we can discuss it then. I'm going to make a motion that we accept the proposal for BMSI for our financial software, and that would include the modules of a web ledger, payroll, and human resources. We would pay $10,000 at this time out of the one-time adequacy grant. They would install the modules, and the balance of the payment, which is $9,795 for the installation and the one-time conversion fee, the annual fee for the payroll, and the approximately the $3,000 for the installation of the human resources that would be paid after July 1st.
So the total package was 19 something and we're paying 10 now and 9 later? Is that the
Yeah,
short
it's a
story?
little
Is
bit,
that what I'm
I think
hearing?
it's, yes,
Okay.
a little bit, I think it's a little bit more than 19.
Oh, okay.
It's about 22.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay. All right, discussion? If you have any questions about this, Aaron is here and he knows all about the bells and whistles. Aaron, you want to tell us just a little bit more, like how that you were pretty impressed with it and what you thought?
Sure, yeah, just for some clarification, your initial proposal was to put the down payment for just the web ledger module, which is the core accounting, your budgeting, your accounts payable, all that stuff. But when I reached out to them to get their feedback, their representative told me the best thing to do is to set up the 3 modules that we're going to roll with, because a lot of the data will be applicable to all 3 modules, the HR module, payroll module, and the web ledger module. So they're going to set everything up and we'll start the data migration. That's pretty much the idea.
Okay. And we also had Linda, our current human resources person, sit in on the little demonstration and she was pretty impressed with it.
EHR, yeah.
Yeah, so, all right. All right, let's do a vote. Liz?
Yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Debbie? Yes. Okay, that was unanimous. That was it for other. Anybody else have an other? Okay, now we have public comments.
Hi, Audrey Bowman. I am coming to the board with kind of a proactive request, something to put in your heads. Camp Invention, probably because we've been in quarantine for so long, I already have more than 40 campers signed up, and it's only March. So in the past, I've only needed 2 instructors because I never really had more than 35 children. I was begging people to come. At one point, I wasn't even sure we would have camp because we didn't have 25. Now I have more than 40. I am expecting at this point to go over 50. And I will need another instructor, and the board does pay a stipend for my instructors. That's $500 for another instructor, and I'm just putting it out there. If we go over 50 and I have to hire another instructor, would you be willing to, fund that for us?
I would assume that could be a ESSER thing, because that's supplementing what we typically do.
It would be supplementing science instruction, which during the spring, we didn't have a lot of. And really, a lot of the primary students are the ones that are flocking And we all know we need to keep our number ratios, students and, to instructors or helpers pretty low for these STEM projects to go without a lot of frustration. So I'm really looking to maybe have to hire another instructor and just wanted to come to you and make sure that you'd be okay with that.
Heidi Jordan is doing a great job selling the program.
Yes,
The
she is.
golden microphones. All I hear about is a golden microphone.
Cameron mentioned to buy the microphones, but it's one of those things that they're going to be learning about this summer. So, just wanted to come forward and put that in front of you so we can discuss and hopefully we'll fund that if I need to. Thank you.
I think that we probably would be able to, if not fund it out of the, Esther's fund.
I would think, that's more than we typically do.
Yeah.
So,
Would you be able to find it out, Lee?
I can find it out, but I can tell you that because you're increasing the capacity based on student need, based on the fact that they've been in the building, I would say that that's more than viable.
Okay.
And a good use of that fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Alrighty, so we do need to have a non-public. And we need it for.
I have personnel.
Okay, so, it's A. Actually, it's B
And you said legal.
and
so
legal. Yeah,
And. I'm sorry, did you say E?
yeah, I think that would, you want to say something?
Miss, I just wanted to let you know that in Monica's notes, she asked for it to be under A and C.
Okay, she has A and C, and I think we can do E, okay?
Alright. So I move we go into non-public at 8:17 under RSA 91 A3 A, B, C, and L.
Okay.
Okay, roll call. public. Eric seconded it, and I'm gonna do a roll call out. Liz,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Debbie, yes. While we were in no public, while we were in non-public, it's almost 9 o'clock, right? No votes were taken. Do we have a motion?
I move that we lift the operating budget of the freeze on the professional development line to allow for workshop this weekend to pay staff.
Yes.
Pay supplies, to pay for the workshop this weekend.
Okay,
Second.
all right, second. All right, discussion?
Yep.
And I think that Kathy mentioned that part of this workshop is going to pay for REAP grants and so forth, and there's about $1,400 or so she needs for supplies.
That is correct.
Okay, there you go. All right, all those in favor? Yeah, okay, we're gonna do a roll call. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Liz?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Debbie? Yes. All right, we did decide that we are going to have our meeting on March 24th. We're going to have a non-meeting with our attorney at 5:30, and then we will start our meeting at 6 o'clock. All righty, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and that is Liz, Eric,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Erica?
Yep.
And Debbie, yes. Thank you, everybody.
It would probably be good to have